I think banking in general can be, at least opening a small business can be really intimidating.
Yeah.
It has never felt that way working with Bremer. Our business wouldn't exist without an SBA loan. Bremer swooped in, held us under their wing, and walked us through it. And we ended up getting everything we needed. Bremer sees us. I mean, like, really sees us.
They're our cheerleaders behind closed doors, and who knew it was going to be our bankers?
I know, right?
It's Not Your Fault is a podcast for parents, caregivers, and young people navigating the world and its challenges. Here's your host, Brandon Jones.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome back to another installment of It Is Not Your Fault, a teen mental health podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Jones, and in today's episode, we're going to talk about how parents and caregivers can support youth workers. This is a newer topic that we have not necessarily talked about on this podcast. Usually we're focusing on, how the adolescents are adjusting to the world, school, how parents are adjusting to adolescence, how caregivers are, working through their own mental health challenges. But we haven't really touched on what support the people who do the work with young people need. They are also responding to the life of the young people, the mental and emotional health of the young people. We don't focus on this podcast much on their needs, which is interesting because in my day-to-day, my 9 to 5, those are the people that I work with the most. So it's kind of a unique thing that I just haven't come across doing it on the podcast. So this is an opportunity to start bridging that gap that we do see between parents, caregivers, and youth workers. And that gap is a natural gap, right? When parents, when they send their children off to school or off to be on a sports team or a social club or part of a program, a lot of times they are trusting in those facilitators, those counselors, those program coordinators, those leads, even those mental health professionals, sometime to take the best care of their children. But oftentimes that it's not directly established is probably the best way to say it. It's more of an indirect establishment and a trust factor that's set in place for folks to feel more comfortable with whatever's happening with the young person and the activity that they're participating in. But I want to talk a little bit about this because one, there have been some reports. I'm a nerd. I love reading and getting articles and bringing that information out to the public because a lot of people don't read the nerdy stuff. They don't read the white papers. They don't read the scholarly journals and articles that come out. They don't read those things. It usually sits within a echo chamber of folks who do pay attention to that and read those things. And sometimes stuff gets leaked out and sometimes it doesn't. So one of the things that I like to do is, since I do have access to this information, is bring it to the public, maybe in a different voice, maybe from a different perspective, but so that they're informed on what people are researching, what people are thinking, and where things are headed. So that's what I intend to do with today's podcast. So making sure that you all are informed on what's happening. But a few months ago, a report came out on parental stress and how parents are responding to this mental health crisis with their own mental health crisis. So what I've decided, what I thought when I originally read that is yes, because I'm seeing it every day. I'm hearing about it every day in the work that I do. But also, what about the folks who do the work? Because I know what their issues are. I hear about them all the time. I know that they're seeking professional homes. I know that they're seeking respite and timeouts. I know that healthcare, but self-care is a very important element to those folks in the work that they do, because they do care about your children. And a lot of those folks are parents themselves, and they have their own children out here that they also care about. So it's a kind of a double whammy that these people end up dealing with. And it's important for us to understand how we want to approach this and how we can support each other in doing this work to make sure that our young people have a great outcome and have a great ability to be in this world and to cope and deal with their own mental health challenges in support of what we're doing for them as parents, caregivers, and youth workers. So today's podcast is how parents can support and collaborate with youth workers to better support adolescent mental health. Youth workers play a critical role in the well-being of adolescents, offering guidance, mentorship, and emotional support. But many of these professionals are also carrying high levels of stress, understaffed. There a lot of understaffing is happening, Burnout and navigating complex mental health challenges can make it difficult for them to show up fully for the youth that they serve. So, as parents and caregivers, you have the power to strengthen and support the system around your child by collaborating with youth workers in meaningful ways. And I listed out 6 ways here that we can actually do this. Now, it's important for people to be very clear what I mean by youth worker. I use that as kind of a catch-all term. You can say practitioner, you can say things like that, but there's so many different types of people that work with youth. The youth worker is probably the best term to use, but it could be a teacher. Again, it could be a coach, it could be a spiritual leader, it could be a counselor, a program officiant, or it could be a lot of different things. But I just wanted to make sure that we used the term where people knew these are people who work with your children. Okay, it could be a early childhood development person. It could be a lot of different things. But here are some things that we can definitely do as parents and caregivers to better connect with youth workers. The first thing is recognize the role of the youth worker. Recognize the role of the youth worker. Youth workers, including mentors, school counselors, social workers, after school program leaders, and community advocates, often spend a significant amount of time with adolescents. What do? They provide emotional support with teens who may not feel comfortable talking to their parents or their caregivers. They teach coping skills and emotional regulation skills. They create safe spaces for self expression. And they advocate for youth needs within school and within communities. And I've been in this role. I've been this person for a lot of young people. Believe it or not, there were young people as a therapist that they would tell me their deepest, darkest secrets that they would never tell their parents. So I held a lot of information and I knew a lot of information about adolescents that their parents didn't even know. Sometimes it was perspective on their parents. Sometimes it was activities on what they've done and where they've gone. Like it's been all types of stuff that I've heard from a counseling standpoint. And I think that this is important for parents and caregivers to know is that these people play a huge role in the development and life of your child, and they may have access to information that you don't know. And they're not always duty bound to let you know what that information is. I know that may seem odd, like right to adults, you as a caregiver and you as a youth worker, you should share information, but that doesn't always happen. Sometimes young people, they really want to keep things confidential. They want to keep it between you and them. And then it's up to the youth worker to make a decision. Do I share this with the parent or not? Now, many youth workers are mandated reporters. So there's things that you do have to share, you do have to report. But a lot of times the things that young people tell us doesn't cause for a mandated reporting situation. It more calls for a rapport building situation where they're just trying to build connection and hopefully some navigation of what they're going through with the person they're working with as a youth worker. So acknowledging the role and the challenges is, I think, the first step in building this bond or this connection between youth workers and parents and caregivers. They're not the same role. They are both important roles. And I think that they can have some collaboration, but they should not be pitted against each other as one may, know more than the other or things of that nature. I do think that there needs to be some sort of alliance here to help the young person. Doesn't mean you tell all the business, but there should be some sort of bridge between caregiver and youth worker so that everybody's on the same page and things are in sync for the betterment of the young person. All right, let's go to the second thing. The second thing is communicate openly and respectfully. Communicate openly and respectfully. Youth workers, including mentors, school counselors, social workers, after school program people, community advocates, all those folks, it's important for them because they usually build a positive relationship with the young people that they're serving, right? And this positive relationship requires an open level of communication. I think that same level of communication should be offered and worked on with parents and caregivers between the youth worker and the parents. And some of the things that I think will help this communication is just staying focused on what they're talking about. So there needs to be some transparency between the advocate and the parent and caregivers, right? So being able to talk about concerns regarding stress, mental health, behavioral chances, even relationships, I think is an important thing to establish. Again, you don't have to tell everything as a youth worker, but enough to build a rapport with the parent so the parent can kind of have some strategies and actions on what they can do to help better assist the young person. Ask about their observations. Get each other's perspectives on what they're seeing, what they're hearing, how they're gauging what's going on. That was always a lifesaver for me in counseling when I could call or meet with the parent and like, oh, they do this and that, or their friend is this person. It's like, oh, that's the dot that I've been missing. I can connect that dot now. Oh, that makes a lot of sense. That opens up a whole new, line of thinking or new world of strategy with the young person. So being able to share observations is key. Share strategies that work at home and strategies that work, at school or in the community. It's good for both people to know what strategies are most effective, and then respect each other's boundaries. Respect each other's boundaries while you know for youth workers, they're advocating for the child's needs ultimately. So it's important that the parents kind of understand that and not try to overstep or push too much. Ask questions, build a relationship, but don't try to dictate how the youth worker should work with your child. I've seen that happen. Never goes well. Don't recommend it. All right, let's go to number 3. Supporting their mental health and well-being as well. Youth workers give a lot of emotional energy to your child. They give a lot of emotional energy to your children and to your child in their work, but they also need support too. And here's a few ways that parents and caregivers can support youth workers. Acknowledge their hard work. A simple thank you can go a long way. You never know how much that makes an impact, where they're like, thank you, I appreciate what you're doing, my kid. I appreciate you. Some people can be a little ungrateful. They can be like, you get paid to do this, so you should do this for my kid. But when parents and caregivers start to see those breakthroughs and they are contributing to the connection point with the youth worker, it's great to hear that and to get that support. Advocate for better resources. Sometimes these youth workers, these folks, are in organizations that aren't the most, well resourced, or they're not working with a lot. So being able to help them get the things that they need to support the outcomes of your child is definitely helpful. A parent's voice can go a long way, a much longer way than an employee's voice. So if you're noticing that they're lacking something for the betterment of your child, I think it's appropriate for parents to bring that up within the organizations that the youth worker works in to say, hey, my child needs this. Can we make this happen? Offer parent perspective in meetings. Make those meetings, make times to connect, be intentional with your time, and then encourage self-care practices. So if it's possible, support initiatives that provide well-being opportunities for youth workers. Sometimes I've seen it where they'll do like these, like it might be somebody's birthday and they just ask parents to pitch in a gift, or something unfortunately tragic happens. I've seen it where they'll open it up for people to help support and support that person, support their family, etc. So just paying attention to what's going on, paying attention to what the youth worker may or may not need. All right, we're almost out of time, and I got a few more to go. Be an active partner in youth programs. Volunteer. Help with logistics. Offer your expertise if you have them, and then encourage the young people or in your life to stay engaged with the youth worker. Are all ways that you can help. Be active. I try to be as active as possible, whether that's donating money or my time or providing resources through my organization. Always try to stay active so they know that you're present, that you're paying attention, and that you care about what they're doing with with your children. And then educate yourself about adolescent mental health. As a parent and caregiver, you're going to be one of the better sources of understanding who your child is, but you still have to stay in the know of what's happening. That's part of this podcast, and others, to keep you informed. So thank you for tuning in, because this is a part of you staying, engaged in what's going on. Look out for signs of stress and burnout, and then always, if you can, offer community resources is always a helpful thing to do. And then the last thing, and then probably the most important thing, is just cultivate and encourage a culture of collaboration. That's a lot of C's. Let me break that down a little easier for you, so you're not, we'll take cultivate out. But encourage a culture of collaboration. Encourage it. Try to collaborate. Let them know that you're available, that you're here, that you're listening, that you care, and vice versa as youth workers to do the same. It's important, for youth work. The most efficient when there's a team effort behind the professionals, the parents, and the community all collaborating together for the betterment of the young person. When we're all engaged, when we're sharing resources, that young person has a lot of opportunity to flourish and grow beyond where they've been. Also, establish those strong partnerships if you can. I want to be an advocate in this space. If you have any questions for me about this, definitely reach out. But connect with the youth workers that are in the lives of your children. Let them know that you're there. Let them know that you care and that you want to support them in any way. And then if you're a youth worker, do the exact same thing to the parents. All right, that's going to wrap up our podcast today. If you liked what I shared today, you want more, you can find the information that I put together for today's podcast on the Facebook group. All you have to do is go to Facebook, put in the search engine. It is Not Your Fault Podcast. And you can find us. Go ahead and like us, follow us there, share resources, get resources, all right there. It is Not Your Fault Podcast on Facebook. Number 2, if you want to get to me directly, you can go to my personal website. It's www.jegna.org. That's www.jegna.org. Jegna.org is where you can find me. And if you like me, but you also want some other information, you can probably check us out on our podcast network. That podcast network is ShalettaMakesMeLaugh.com. Again, ShalettaMakesMeLaugh.com. You can find myself and a plethora of amazing other podcasters right there on the network. All right, folks, that's going to do it for us today. Thank you for tuning in to It's Not Your Fault, a Teen Mental Health Podcast. Again, I am your host, Brendan Jones. I want to encourage you to be safe, be constructive, and be well, and we'll see you next time. Take care.
To check out previous episodes of It's Not Your Fault, or to learn more about Brandon Jones, log on to ShalettaMakesMeLaugh.com.
You know Shaletta makes you laugh, but did you know Shaletta Brundage can also make you think and boost your business? Media personality, activist, and comedian Shaletta Brundage founded Shaletta Makes Me Laugh to celebrate and share the best of Black culture. It's a podcasting platform. You can download 10 weekly podcasts hosted by African-American subject experts at ShalettaMakesMeLaugh.com or wherever you find your favorite podcasts. ShalettaMakesMeLaugh.com is also a production house, creating broadcast-quality commercial content. And Shaletta and her team of storytellers create powerful promotional campaigns to get businesses the brand awareness they're looking for. Some of Minnesota's top businesses trust Shaletta, and you can too. Get out the word about your events and products and get in front of communities of color with ShalettaMakesMeLaugh.com. She's got the power to help your business.